you smell what the
Willson
is cooking?
Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. There's Luke Willson. What's happening, Luke?
Not much. I do have a statement to read, if you don't mind.
Uh-oh.
Sure. Yeah, take the floor. What do you have?
Big statement. I just wrote this out. I had something on my chest. I wanted to get it out there. So bear with me here. Dear Geppetto Farm members, it has been really great over the last 2 years to become best friends with my Partsy O-Dog. We have a lot in common. Golf, talking sports, and just being bros. The most important thing we have in common is being pro athletes and being very competitive. We love the competition the NFL picks each week. Unfortunately, the bot farmers and Geppettos have stooped to a level that is not competitive and is not enjoyable. My Partsy and I agreed that if we sweep tonight, then you two are frauds are suspended for the weekend. Bring in Farhan and Naylor or someone else. This just isn't fun anymore.
All right, so let me address that statement.
Parts. That's a serious thing. If our NFL guy doesn't feel competitive anymore, that puts some. You want to talk about putts going in today, putting pressure on the opponent. You better make something happen tonight, Hayesy.
That's a 6-footer down the hill must make. And listen, it's as I said earlier, that to me is an egregious overstep because it's the beginning of week 5. It's a 1-score game. We punch in 6 and go for 2. We're tied, right? It's -8. It's not as if we're down, 2 scores, 3 scores, late in the third, early fourth quarter. It's early in the season, but I'll accept that. No problem, because Al's brother and I, we have had a great week of practice. And
do you have support? Like, we have a lot of people that give us, like, the pro athlete salute emoji, and we have supporters. Do you have, like, is there people that are like, hashtag Geppetto Farmers, let's go?
Yes, we do happen to have a lot of support out there. We have a lot of support. We addressed this earlier in the year. Like, you guys think you're the good guys, and you're not. Like you guys are the ones.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, we don't operate a bot farm. This is a battle of good versus evil, and we are not evil.
You're not the good guys. You're not, man. It's you guys.
That I don't
villains.
Understand. I really don't understand that comment.
Throw a poll out there, Doogie. Ask the people. Ask the bot farms out
there.
It's
very simple.
Ask the Geppettos.
Who are the villains? The pro athletes or the Geppetto bot farmers? It's a very simple question.
All right, throw it out there and ask.
GBT or GB. What a GBF.
That's
GBF.
Geppetto bot farmer.
Yes, the GBF versus the pro athlete salute.
GBF.
But that's fine. I'll accept that challenge. No problem. Al's brother and I, we got a great read on this game tonight.
Tough game tonight, Hayes.
Very tough game.
Tough
Battle
game.
of the NFC South. Like, this division, it kind of feels legit. Like, is it a legit division? I guess that's the way to start.
I think these two teams are legit. I think the Saints have some fraudulent activity going on. I think they maybe got a little lucky. Not lucky, I shouldn't say that, but their schedule was good the first couple of weeks as far as matchup-wise. I think they're a middle-of-the-road, like above-average team. Mm-hmm. But do I think that they're like an NFC powerhouse? No. But I do think that the Bucs and the Falcons have the potential to be very, very solid teams. I think they're obviously a step below the big dogs of the NFC right now, the Niners, the Lions, maybe the Vikings. But I would put them in the next group of teams.
Partsy, what did you think of Baker Mayfield with that comment? And I don't know if it was directed at Tom Brady and the way he conducted business in Tampa Bay, but Brady gave it to him on the broadcast. Like, why would Baker even take the chance of him getting to him?
This kind of keeps coming up, and I don't know. Like, I ended up going back after we talked about it last time and listening to the whole clip, and it did sound like it was really directed at Tom. And I'm like, why? Like, if there's a guy that I wouldn't take a shot at, it's Tom Brady.
Yes.
And I am not the biggest Tom guy at the moment. I liked him a lot more when I was playing. But it's kind of hard to, like, come for Tom Brady. So it's a bit strange. He did say afterwards that it was taken out of context.
He said it, and it's on TV.
I don't know.
It wasn't like some beat
correct.
writer wrote it down. And
I don't know what kind of
misquoted
context he wanted that to come off as.
Exactly.
You got to know, especially him at this point, that if you say something that's on the borderline of being a bit, edgy, it's going to come out the way that you don't want it to come out. It's not like he's a rookie in the league.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the Baker Mayfield resurgence, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this, because I don't think what he said about Brady, it wasn't so over the top and offside or anything like that. But I think what's come around with Baker is he's become this endearing figure, and his journey has become one that is almost unanimously supported. Where when he came out of Oklahoma, he was cocky, and he gets to Cleveland, and it was a good start. Then it kind of fell apart, and it felt like he was moving in like a Johnny Manziel direction.
Yes.
And now that he's jumped around the league a little bit and found something in Tampa, I would like to believe, he's learned from his journey, and maybe people around him have learned from this. Said, dude, just keep being like that positive guy. Go out there and play well, win ball games. People are going to like you. Don't say or do anything that's going to put you in a bad light, because he could ride this wave to maybe an 8-10 year run in Tampa if he keeps it up.
Yes.
Yeah, he's on it. He's on a heater, and I think this kind of goes to show you in this league, a lot of it, not all of it, obviously, but a lot of it is situational. And I even look at him in Cleveland, where he did have some success there early. They win a playoff game, they beat the Steelers. Mm-hmm. He's the quarterback, and it's like, hey, this guy looks, again, not like necessarily a Hall of Famer, but he looks like a very, very good quarterback. And then it tails off, and again, I don't really know anyone in Cleveland that's, set up for success. There's been some players, but they've been few and far between. And even this year, I like the Browns coming into the year, and somehow they seem to not be good anymore. And I would say back in the day that was Detroit as well. Obviously not now. But he bounces around a little bit, and he's had moments of glimmers, if you will, where he's looked great, and then he gets into a situation where last year they had Dave Canales, obviously a very quarterback-friendly coach. He's got good weapons, especially Mike Evans around him. Godwin's still playing well. And now he's cooking, and he's having fun, and he's enjoying it. And I also think that part of his comment is going the direction of there's just not that many hard-nosed, old-school football coaches or players anymore. And you look at, Tom Brady in that era, the Belichicks, the Parcells, that style of coaching and players. I think with college, the NIL, all these things, call it whatever, Gen Z, Gen X, I don't know what the terminology is, but guys don't respond to that as much as they used to, in my opinion, anymore.
So you talk about situations, Partsy. We've seen some young quarterbacks, first overall picks, one in Carolina, get swallowed up as of late. Swallowed up, chewed up, and it's just what is the difference between his situation in Carolina and the kid Daniels in Washington? What about that situation is making him excel the same as Bryce Young just got chewed up?
So, O-Dog, the one about Bryce Young that's really, it's tough for me to wrap my head around is that even though they're 1-1, Andy Dalton, both games, has looked awesome. I mean, they scored a bunch
Chris Farley awesome.
Yes. They scored a bunch of points against Cincinnati, and I'm not saying Cincinnati is, a very stout defense, but the way Bryce Young was playing, even if he's going up against a bad defense, they weren't moving the ball at all. So you talk about Jane Daniels, and I would almost throw into this conversation Kyler Murray as well. I look at Jane Daniels, and I'm like, how come Cliff Kingsbury has been able to have so much success with Jaden Daniels through 4 weeks, yet the Kyler Murray situation, in my opinion, for all the hype, has been a bloodbath. And obviously Jaden Daniels only played 4 games, but this 4-game stretch has been MVP level. I mean, his completion percentage is off the chains. I can't remember the exact number, but the punter didn't have a punt for some absurd amount of drives. Every drive was a scoring drive. So to me, it's coaches, but it's also players understanding coaches and executing what is trying to be done. And I don't know, and again, I can say the same thing. Maybe Kingsbury learned from his mistakes with Kyler, but I have a hard time like sitting here and let's go back to Bryce Young and being like, okay, it's the weapons around him or it's the coaches or it's the offense. And then Andy Dalton comes in and he's not just adequate. He's lit it up.
Looks good, man.
For 2 straight weeks. And Carolina's 1-1 and they were in that Cincinnati game. So the Bryce Young thing, because of the way Andy Dalton has played and taken over, I'm a lot more worried. And as a guy who also played in the same system that Carolina's running, Dave Canales was in Seattle forever, and there's a lot. Pete Carroll's son, Nate Carroll, is in Carolina at the moment. He was on our staff. The tight end coach. There's a lot of crossover. We never ran a very complex offense. So it's scary to me that we couldn't process it at quarterback because there's definitely more levels you would hope to develop into as a quarterback, let alone the base stuff they're running now.
Luke, 2 teams that are still undefeated. What team ends up being 5-0 between the Vikings and the Chiefs?
To me, I would say the Chiefs, and that's a bit of a surprise. Now, you got a little bit of a forward look because I think we're on the Jets-Minnesota game. The reason I think Minnesota's a great team, Noodles.
Yeah.
Great team. But I get a little nervous for them this week. I believe the game's in London. And their defense has been phenomenal. And Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator, he gives a lot of different looks at the line of scrimmage. It's a very high-risk style of defense. You kind of need veteran guys to do it because if one guy's out of place or mistimes something, then it could be a huge play. But they have executed at a wildly high level, and it's confused a lot of quarterbacks. And you look at some of their wins, it's been younger quarterbacks. Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, C.J. Stroud. Great teams they've beat, but younger guys. I get a little nervous for Minnesota this week because you sit there and you've got a great, great defense in the Jets. I think they're going to really be, chip on the shoulder after looking, not the defense, but playing bad as a team and losing last week. And if there's a guy in this league who's going to be able to figure out what Brian Flores' pre-snap disguises are, it's Aaron Rodgers. So to answer that one, I'm going to stick with the Chiefs. I know that they've got the big injuries, but I just feel like they always find a way, and this team's rolling right now.
Well,
so that's
and
where
they
I'm
got
at.
New Orleans. They got New Orleans at home on Monday
Yes.
night. I mean that sets up pretty well for them. And my only pushback on the Jets is Nathaniel Hackett's still the coordinator, and I feel like anything Rodgers sniffs out, he'll screw up.
So,
You hate the hack again,
Yes.
don't
Dude,
you,
the hack
Hayesy?
doesn't know what he's doing. Go watch. We heard Garrett Wilson on ESPN in New York. The guy's like, our offense sucks, man. No creativity. Like when a wide receiver says, "I'm watching other teams do stuff and we just don't seem to do that," that is a massive indictment on the offensive coordinator.
But he's supposed to be boys with Aaron Rodgers. Why isn't Aaron Rodgers saying to him, "Pull your head out of your ass, man. This is trash"?
It's a good
Why isn't
question.
he doing that?
He should be because he was the OC when Rodgers won his MVP.
Yes, that's the reason why he's even there, or one of them.
I think Aaron likes to do his own thing. And it's funny. This is a guess here. I've never played with Aaron. But to me, I think he wants him there because Aaron can basically do whatever the hell he wants.
Right.
And Aaron will sit there and call the play. And I've been told through the grapevine, and he's the only guy I've ever heard this, where Aaron will get plays, at least back in the day in the McCarthy era, and would be like, we're not running this, and call his own play in the huddle. So there's always these rumors, like almost tall tales, where you hear like Aaron Rodgers would be like, you're at recess, like drawing stuff up in the huddle, like, hey, I want you to do this. And guys would be like, what, dude? Like, this isn't even a play. And then he'd come out and just sling one. So I think part of the Nathaniel Hackett thing is that Aaron would rather like some very base call, and then he goes up, figures out the defense, calls a check, calls a route, change, twist, throws an absolute laser with pinpoint accuracy. And now he's the man, not the OC. That's a hunch. It's an opinion. I don't know that for sure. But that's the kind of vibe that I get out of that situation.
Hey, it's still the best intro in pro sports,
Yes,
man.
yeah.
Like it is what it is. Wins and losses aside, there's no better intro in entertainment right now than Al's brother. And Al's brother, the plant is growing, which I love.
The magic bullet is still in place. Everything is rocking.
It looks fantastic. How are we feeling for week 5?
he just made me maybe I need to change something up over here. Maybe that will help us get going in the right direction. I don't know. This is a tough game. I mean, it really is a tough game, but it's par for the course. We've gotten the brutal matchups over the last few weeks.
Here
so
we go.
This is what I fully expect out of this clown show over here. But I'm ready to rock, man.
Okay.
I think it's still going to be a decent ball game tonight. Divisional game. They're always a good time.
Always a good time. And I don't know if you heard Luke's statement.
Would you like me to read it again?
Well, I guess, it sounds like a hostage statement, but if you want to read it, go ahead. If you want to hear it, House Brother, read it for House
We
Brother.
don't need to read it again. It's just basically saying the Geppetto Farm, TGF, you guys need to step up or you're going to be replaced.
We need to make it competitive,
Yeah.
guys.
They want to
what is your record this
for us
season?
to
How
be
many
able to pick
games
the
have you
rest of the
called
weekend.
correctly through 4 weeks? Is it 3?
Well, a push,
We're
too.
through 4 weeks.
Push is basically a win, but yes, it's early.
Push is basically a win.
Push is a win?
It's week 5, right? House
Look
Brother?
at
We're
that
easing
record.
into this.
There's the banner. 3-7-1?
Right. It's the equivalent of being 1-3 on the season with high expectations. This is where we
That's
start
right.
turning things around. Right, House Brother?
Hey, we're the Oilers last year through their first 9
Exactly.
games. Very similar record. I
I
think
thought
they were,
they-
2-7-2 or something
That's
like
right.
that?
They were
Very
worse than
similar
us.
record.
Didn't they fire their head
2-9-2.
coach? Or am I
Yeah, it's
It's
tripping?
irrelevant.
There was big changes in there.
Erroneous. Erroneous.
But the players
Yeah.
would have got it done, and I think the players will get it done.
That's
Hazy
right.
B will get it turned around. Don't
Be
worry.
my dry saddle, House Brother, and let's pick a winner tonight. Falcons laying 2.5 on FanDuel. Who do we like and why?
All right, this is a big game for us, Hazy B. This is a big game for us. But look, I think we look at a couple of things, right? It's a short week. The Falcons are at home. The Bucs, they got to travel. They're banged up. No Antoine Winfield, which is a massive loss for that defense. They got a starting right tackle who's going to be out, and they also are losing out on one of their linebackers. So they're pretty banged up. But ultimately, I look at the Bucs, and I know they've got Vita Vea, and he's a dog. That dude is a beast right there. But they have been struggling against the run this year. They're giving up 5 yards per carry, and I like Bijan Robinson to cook tonight. Not only on the ground, but also in the air, where this team has also really struggled, giving up a lot through the air to running backs. He's slippery. He's a dirty, dirty bird, fellas. A dirty, dirty bird. And here's our boy, Kirky Primetime, Hazy B. Kirky Primetime. Everyone talks about how this guy's terrible in primetime games.
You
He's
guys have been
8-3.
roasting him for the last 2 years,
You're
man.
going to take
No,
my guy,
we have
Kirk Cousins? You're going to take him?
Kirky Cousins, who's 8-3 as the favorite in primetime football games in his career, will once again cover the number. I believe in Kirky Cousins. Thursday nights, he's got a 97.6 quarterback rating, averaging 310 yards throughout his career.
Dude, this
I
is
think to get the
insane.
running game
This might
going,
be the worst
establish
I've
the
heard.
play action. I think they'll be moving the ball, moving and shaking. I like the Dirty Birds, baby. The Dirty Birds.
Peter flying with the Birds and the Falcons. I wonder how Jason Kelsey would respond to all of those numbers.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
All of those stats, all of those numbers.
Are you signing off on the selection?
Well, this is where we
Uh-oh.
have to be on the same page, Alice brother. We need a win tonight. I'm getting catcalled all through Toronto, man. I can't hit the streets of Toronto without someone yelling at me saying, you guys better snap out of it. It's pathetic what's going on. People are calling
I
us the
know.
Chicago White Sox. Do you know how awful that is?
no.
The White Sox, Noodles. That's how embarrassing
That's
it is.
terrible. That's tough.
I
man.
woke up to a similar phone call this morning, and it was basically the exact same thing, calling us the White Sox.
Yeah.
And we might be as memorable, and that's not a good thing to be memorable as.
No, it's not. Yet their season's done. Our season is just beginning. Everyone knows we snap out of it for week 5. That's how we operate. The first 4 weeks are our preseason to set the tone for the rest of the year. And we have to believe in the process. We have to believe in tremendous information plus gut instinct. And I think you marry the two tonight with the Falcons. We are flying with the Birds tonight. Give me primetime Kirk Cousins on a Thursday night
Dude.
under the lights at
Dude.
home. I love this pick. What a start to the week.
Dude,
This is where things turn the
We
pages.
took Kirky Cousins 2 different times, and you guys went on a whole spiel saying how crazy we were because this guy is garbage in prime time.
Hey,
and
that was Kirk. That was Kirky as the dog. When Kirk is a dog, he's 4-12. When he's the favorite, he's 8-3. They're favorites
what are
tonight.
stats for again? What are stats for?
Please play the
Numbers
the
are
Kelsey
nerds.
drop.
Nerds are losers.
Yes, the
Losers
Jason-
or whatever it is.
The Jason Kelsey.
You want
drop.
one more piece of tremendous information that I feel
Hit
really
me.
good about
Yes.
tonight,
Hit
fellas?
me.
All right, Luke, are you familiar with a gentleman named John Hussey?
No.
He is a longtime referee in the National Football League. Probably threw a couple of flags on you back in your day, I would imagine.
Probably.
John Hussey, when he is refereeing games, those teams, the home squads, 14-1 against the spread in his last 15 games. 14-1. I like rolling with the
How
home
did you
squad
find
again.
that out? Tell me how you found that out. Like, what
Stats are numbers.
degenerate-
Numbers are nerds. Nerds are losers. Therefore, stats are losers.
I mean, how many years did the guy play? How many ball games did that guy
Long
win?
time, man.
So,
Yeah.
Hayes,
A lot.
Can I put something on your plate right now? Because I know you haven't locked it in. And I'm being very honest here. Sometimes I like to try and get you guys going. If it was my pick, I would have taken the Falcons because I'm a big Kirk Cousins guy. I've already picked him twice this year. I like Kirk Cousins. I like this Falcons team. However, you're a bit of a baseball fan, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
You guys are in a slump. Is that fair to say? It was +1, and since then, I believe we're 7-0-1.
Yeah, it's not going
It's
our
been an
way.
absolute heater. You guys need a slump buster. There's a variety of different ways to get that, but sometimes you got to zig when Al's brother zags. If you really want the karma tonight, go over the top right now and take the Bucks. That will put you guys. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over. It's the definition of
I hear
insanity.
you. And believe me, we had this conversation earlier, Al's brother and I. Do we go opposite George here? But we're not going to do that because we are champions. We have been champions in the past, and you have to trust your process.
Now
right?
I feel like
it's
the
like
Bucks
Mike
are gonna
Weir
win.
going into the weekend. We have a
Partsy, what's the
plan.
likelihood of the Buccaneers going in there and spanking them? Is there a possibility?
Yeah, there's
of
a
that?
possibility for sure.
Of course there is.
Yes,
I
I
it's a
think
2.5 point spread. I mean, this is effectively a pick'em game. Tampa's
Correct.
3-1. They're a really good team.
the run game is going to be the key to this thing. And as much as the Bucks have struggled, they've also played a couple juggernaut teams. You know, you look at the Lions, and it's like I think we all saw the Lions Monday night. Granted, that defense was banged up, but the Lions can run the football now. So, you know, some of these things are a little like it's been 4 games. Some of the running backs they've played, I think Saquon was in there as well. Like, how great of a team have they played against, et cetera, the situations. But to me, that's going to be the big matchup because I don't see Atlanta's offense as like this gunslinging, you know, let it rip situation yet. So if the Bucks come in here and can stop the run, I could see the Bucks winning this by, 5-6 points. If the Bucks get ran all over, I think Kirk covers the spread. But again, going into today, I felt like the Falcons would cover the spread. But now that Al's brother has picked them, and he is the ultimate cooler, even his text messages somehow can cool teams off. Mm-hmm. I mean, this man cooled off. Is it Aubrey Huff? Am I saying that right? The kicker for the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
I mean,
Brandon Aubrey.
Brandon Aubrey, excuse me.
That was tough.
Aubrey Huff, that's a baseball. I'm a baseball guy.
Yep.
Brandon Aubrey. Like, he texts the group and said Jordan Love's about to start his MVP campaign, and the next play the man blew his MCL out. Like, hey,
It's uncanny, man. I
It
hear
is.
you.
That was tough, too. That was a tough one, too.
You got to think at this point that you've got a formula to win. It's sit back, take all Al's brother's information, let him make the pick, go over the top, and you'd be sitting here right now with a great winning record.
I'll tell you what, tonight might be the last straw. If we can't get this one, Al's brother, I think I fade you for a few weeks. We get back in this, and then we reset.
Hold on a second. I want to
All right.
point something out here. Al's brother, did you hear Luke's opening statement?
I did hear the opening statement.
Hey, Hayes, why don't you
might-
just next week? If this doesn't work out, you can hear his tremendous information without chatting before the show, and you just either give him the stiff arm or you roll with it. Like you can't keep agreeing.
Yeah, because
with
we're
this
not bringing in Naylor and Farhan or something.
I
not
feel
this
like there
early in
should
the
be.
year. No
I
way,
feel like
Noodles.
that.
Not
Yeah,
doing it.
You're not doing it?
No, we're not doing it. We're a team. We're in this together.
I
Going down with the ship.
I thought the Overdrive fan poll was going to allow to see who the villains are.
Well,
how are we at there? How are we at there?
I'll tell you right now, it's currently the Geppetto bot farm is 53%, Pro Athlete Salute 47%. It's a toss-up.
What?
It's a pick-em right now.
Doug, you got to remember that as that thing went up, Al's brother operated at least 100 burners and voted against us.
I know. He was eating hay and starting up Geppetto farms.
Right. Donnie Trump fake news. Absolute fake news, fellas.
You're right.
Hayes, we got to dig in, okay?
Yep.
We do got to dig in, right? We've made it this far into the season. It's time to dig the bleep in.
That's right, McDavid. I love it, and it starts tonight. We are going to storm back into this with a Falcons cover tonight. Al's brother, great stuff, great, tremendous information as always. Lukey boy, we'll catch you on Jay tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
See you guys tomorrow.
There it is, Luke
I
Willson
like that.
and Al's brother. Hayes and Bro on the Falcons laying 2.5 tonight. Pressure list coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel. We'll get to our best bets later in the hour. Later this afternoon anyway. A little same-game parlay for the NFL tonight. Week 5 starting. Bucs-Falcons. Leafs in action tonight as well down in Detroit. Their second-last preseason game. This time next week, we'll be breaking down their first regular season game. Leafs-Habs next Wednesday night. So hockey has arrived here, right? It's go time, man. You can feel it. The real stuff happens actually on Friday with a game over in Prague. And then the rest of the league catches up early next week. And again, Leafs-Habs next Wednesday night. So every Thursday we've been doing generally a 5-pack. I will supply you with a list based on a variety of topics. This week we decided to expand it to 10, which may be a bit rich.
Not for all of Canada, though.
But I don't exactly like this. We stumbled across it earlier this week. You guys actually created this. You said we got to do like a pressure list featuring all the players, all the coaches on the 7 Canadian teams, and it's going to be based on these players and coaches, the pressure to help meet their team's expectations.
Yes.
All right, so that's important because obviously Edmonton has a different expectation than Montreal. Toronto has a different one than Calgary, right? So you got to take that into consideration. And I think it'll make sense as the list goes on. You guys ready to get started here?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, at number 10, again, a 10-pack here for Hazy's list. I have Craig Berube at number 10.
Wow, I thought that's low.
My thought on this is it's his first year, right? It's his first year. But when you're taking over a team that's been to the playoffs 8 years in a row, and it's a very acute problem. It's how can you find a way to inspire this team to win games in the playoffs? Can they score in the playoffs? Can they win at home in the playoffs? And how do they get through Boston, Tampa, Florida, whoever they're going to play? Craig Berube's got a lot of pressure. It may be unfair considering he hasn't even coached a game yet in the regular season. He's 6 days away from that. But I have Berube at 10. All right? Craig Berube at 10.
That makes good sense.
I have Marty St. Louis at 9.
Oh.
I'm starting back-to-back coaches out of the gate.
Interesting.
Marty St. Louis. And this really came upon, it kind of came to my attention when we were in Montreal last week and kind of focusing on where they're at and this, the Crave documentary that's out, the rebuild. And they got to take a step here. And I think Line A injured certainly hurts that. I don't think the Reinbacher kid was going to play much, if at all, this year, but maybe by the end of the season. But something has to change there.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier in the week, there isn't a lot of history of the coach who shows up with kid gloves on. Hey, we're brutal, we're terrible, but let's have positive vibes and everyone work on things. To transition from that guy, the babysitter, to the next closer, like that's a tough thing to do, man. There's not a lot of history of that in the NHL.
Being both is a difficult chore to say, hey, let's try to have fun and let's do some small area skill drills to what the hell do you think you're doing that's not acceptable for us to win? You know what I mean? It's a different ball game, man.
And I think Marty's got to wear a different hat this year. I think he's got to have some different stripes, and he's got to find a couple of different pitches that he can throw because they got to move up.
Accountability, too.
Accountability.
That's what it is, yeah.
Exactly. So Marty St. Louis at 9. Thatcher Demko at 8. I have Demko at 8. Now, this is intriguing because of the injury, right? But you look back on their team last year, and what did Kelsey say? Numbers are nerds are losers, so losers are whatever. But you look at their underlying stats, save percentage, shooting percentage, everything broke their way last year.
I know where you're going with this. You think there could be a drop-off.
I'm concerned that they are a team that screams recession a little bit, but I think the greatest tool to fight back on recession is goaltending.
Yes.
It's always the equalizer, or always the thing that just kills a storm, right?
Yeah.
Just kills a recession. And Demko being injured, it's really concerning. Like, it's really concerning, which I think actually puts even more pressure on him, because he's got to recover, he's got to play, and he's got to be elite.
Is he even putting his gear on right now?
He is. He's practicing, but I was talking to somebody about it today. It's still concerning because, they came out with the injury. I can't even pronounce what the muscle behind the knee is, because he's never had – no athlete has ever had.
You don't even have to say what that is. All you need to say to be concerned is the muscle behind the knee.
Right, but it's like, but he's saying he's feeling better, but I don't know what that translates to. Does that translate, hey, I'll be there opening night, hey, I'll be there 2 weeks into the season? That's the multi-million-dollar question out there, because they brought in Kevin Lankinen. They got Sheloff from the playoffs last year, who played in the playoffs. So I think they're okay there, but they're not Thatcher Demko.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Exactly. So Demko at 8. I have Travis Green at number 7, the new head coach of the Ottawa Senators. They, much like Montreal, they're a step or two ahead of where Marty St. Louis is. And what's different here is Greeny is the closer, right? Like, he's the guy now. DJ Smith was kid gloves, rebuilt to an extent, and obviously it went against him by the end of it. But new owner, new management, now new coach. Travis Green, he has got to hit the ground running. Like, it cannot look the same the first 15 or 20 games. It can't. They cannot be 6-12-4, in their first whatever amount of games. You can't do it.
Yeah.
He's got to put a stamp on that team. He's got to get them defending. He's got to get them playing more of a mature style. He's got to find out who can play with who and make sure that thing gets humming, because Ottawa, it's long overdue. They missed the playoffs for, 6 years now, I think?
Yeah, and there might be some guys in that organization, Hayes. You want to talk about taking the next step. I think it's, for a lot of teams, and when you have young guys that are making the money, it's like, okay, you're up next, go ahead. You're up next, go ahead. It might be time for somebody to say, actually, you're not up next. You got to take a seat there for a while, because what you're doing out there is outrageous.
Right.
Like, it's that time in the progression where it's not just, keep going out there, have fun, learning experience. Screw that. It's time to drop the hammer there.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Green could be higher, but again, like Berube, he's just got there, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's you got to give him some time, but it's a pressure-packed job, because Ottawa's got to get cooking, man. They got to get going, and I think Travis Green's going to have to play a big role in that. Number 6, again, these are a list of the players and coaches that need to help meet their team's expectations. Pressure on these players and coaches to help meet their team's expectations. Number 6, Stuart Skinner. All right, Skinner, who is now taking that next step of, is he a tandem guy? Can he be a number 1? They had a bad start last year, and he wasn't great during that bad start. I think it's imperative they get off to a good start. I think they got to get over that hangover from Game 7. I also think this is cheating a little bit on this list, but there's an international component to this. Like, he's got pressure on him to prove to Canada that he can be the man, because he might be starting at that Four Nations Cup. He might be the man at the Olympic Games in 2026. And when you have cup or bust aspirations, and that's what Edmonton has, who's your goalie that's going to do that for you? It's very clearly Skinner. So I have him at number 6.
It's interesting, because I think you're right. He had a bad start. They sent Campbell down. They handed him the keys to the car. I had to go back and look at all the goalies. He played 82 games last year. Mm-hmm. He played 59 in the regular season and 23 in the playoffs. Like, that's, that at least you talk about work.
That's big boy stuff, man.
That it is. Like, at least he showed that he has the capability. Now, there were bumps in the road, obviously.
25 of them, he probably wasn't very good at the beginning of the year.
Well, whatever it is, you're right. But at the end of the day, this guy played in 82 hockey games as a goalie last year. pretty impressive. Like, he at least showed that he can be a 1. And I think that's where you're going. Now, what's the next step?
Do it again.
Exactly. What's the next step?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Prove that wasn't an anomaly. Prove that they have you, that you're set, that it's ready to go, and that you can be the man. That it's not just McDavid, just Draisaitl.
Yeah.
You're on their level in terms of a core piece.
Yeah.
So Skinner at 6. We continue with the goaltending theme here at 5. Linus Ullmark at 5. Had Travis Green earlier, obviously. But when you look at that Ottawa team and you were up close and personal for it, the goaltending just was crushing for them last year. And it's been a crushing position for them really for years. It's been something they just have not been able to figure out. Probably since, Craig Anderson had those good, couple of years when he was in Ottawa. They have run through a lot of different goalies. They've tested out a lot of different guys. They've signed different guys. They've traded for different guys. Ullmark is the guy that they are putting their chips behind, right? Yep. He, I believe, more so than all but one other goalie in the country, and we'll get to that in a moment, has pressure on him to get the job done. I mean, he's got to make that Ottawa Senator team feel legit. So I have Ullmark at 5.
Big responsibility. I'll be fascinated to watch that decor, because let's not forget, they were giving up some serious rubber last year. They need to completely do different things back there. So that decor in front of Ullmark is going to be massive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you're right. And I know who the goalie is on the other ahead of him on the list. He's got to prove it. But in the playoffs, that's where you're going to go. But my thing is a lot of these goalies can be on the list just because you play well.
The nature of the position, for
exactly.
Sure.
Like, that's really what it is. The nature of the position. Because, you say a good goalie can keep people out of the video room.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of where we're going.
Big time. Number 4, Austin Matthews at 4, the new captain of the Leafs. You're a generational talent. You're the greatest goal scorer in the world. You might be the greatest American-born player ever. Now you're the captain of the Leafs. There's question marks. Is Marner going to be around? Will Tavares be around? You're here as long as you want to be here. And it's time to separate him from his counterparts in Toronto. It's time to break the core 4, not literally because they're all still here, but figuratively in terms of putting him in a different category. And he obviously had a phenomenal season last year. He's won the Rocket. He's won the Hart. He's won the Ted Lindsay. He's got to win in the playoffs. And he's got to be a driving force for what needs to be different. Craig Berube was already on this list at number 10. Matthews is the man. He's the guy. He is the heartbeat of this team. He needs to put forth a monster season. And I think he's got to lead by example. And I think clearly if the Leafs are going to go anywhere, it's going to be driven by him. And more so than ever in the playoffs. I mean, what happens with this team in the playoffs? They don't score in big moments. You're the greatest goal scorer maybe of all time. And you're on a team that doesn't score in the biggest moments. Mm-hmm. You got to figure that out, man. You got to figure that out. Matthews at 4.
Let's go to the analytics. So all the analytics people were all over me today. They're like, they have great analytics. Oh, you don't know what you're – I don't know. They're trying to pit me against Megan Chayka. I'm like –
what?
Like, we're friends.
About what,
it's not like she
about
cares
what
I say. I don't know. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're so dumb talking about the stats. These guys have great – and I'm just like, you just mentioned they don't score in the playoffs. Do you know why that is? They don't get to the middle of the ice. That's why. Mitch Marner's and William Nylander's and Austin Matthews, they don't get to the middle ice. They get pushed to the outside, and that's why they have difficult scoring. What's your stat for that? What is it? I don't know. Anyway, moving
Can't be
on
a positive one.
No,
it's not. I wasn't aware of it till I was with you earlier today. I didn't know things were happening. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
Online.
No, just dummies on Twitter.
Is that Jason Kelsey type stuff? Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, they're just like, explain this to Jeff, please. He doesn't get it. I'm like, okay. Thanks.
Stats are numbers. Numbers are nerds. Nerds are losers. Therefore, stats are losers.
I don't understand. We'll keep it going here, but I don't understand what you need to be explained to. There's zero. There's one playoff
because it's all these Geppettos that they just don't get
matter.
it. They just think that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Listen, I don't know how you justify the Leafs' history in the playoffs. Like I couldn't imagine there's a number there that. Can
here's the one thing for you. Anyone that believes in all that, the Leafs have been a stats-driven team for the last 6 years. Where has it got them? There's your evidence right there.
Right.
Nowhere.
No, in the playoffs, nowhere. All right, we're into the top 3. Players and coaches with pressure on them to meet their team's expectations. At number 3, Elias Pettersson. Couldn't have been worse down the stretch for him. Couldn't have been worse. He had a horrible stretch run and an awful playoffs, and he signed a monster ticket. The biggest contract, I believe, in team history.
Crazy thing about it was the decline started right after the signing.
Right, he signs the deal, and then his wheels fell off. And that Vancouver team, again, I don't know what's going to happen with Demko. Now you're year 2 into Rick Tocchet. He hit every right button yesterday or last year. Right, he was touching every piano key that he was supposed to last year. Yeah. What happens the second year, we'll find out. They still have Quinn Hughes. They still have JT Miller. I think they've got some good depth there. Their front office has done a phenomenal job. But Pettersson's got to be the man because that marketplace is looking at him saying, you just got paid, man, and a lot of money, and that was brutal the way you played down the stretch.
And that other dude, JT Miller, has held up his end of the bargain every single night he takes the ice. That guy's a gamer, and he's a stud.
Yep, and Pettersson is too. Pettersson's a great, great player. And the expectations have always been there. They have to continue to be there. And after the stretch run last year and the contract kicking in, he has got to be a guy facing pressure, and he's got to meet that pressure, and he's got to exceed with all that pressure hanging around him. So Elias Pettersson is at number 3. I have Connor Hellebuyck at 2. Connor Hellebuyck at 2 because of all the Canadian teams, I think you could argue he defines his team more than anyone else in the country, even maybe more so than McDavid in Edmonton, Matthews in Toronto. That team is Hellebuck's team. Like he was so good last year, and like they were setting records for not giving up more than 3 goals in a game, and a lot of that is team defense and coaching. And Rick Bowness was doing a great job, but Hellebuyck is the team. Like they are going to make the playoffs because he plays great. I think if he has an average season, they're at a real risk of missing the playoffs. I think he's got to be elite. I think he is elite. And then in the playoffs, I mean, the stats speak for themselves. I know the defensive breakdowns were awful, the shots were awful, all that kind of stuff. But he has had his doors blown off the last 2 years in the playoffs. Like, his numbers have completely cratered. And he's got to be great. He's got to be great for Edmonton to go. He is the engine in that city and within that team.
I don't disagree. I think we just talked about it. Results, regardless, even if his stats were good, it's result-based business. This is what it is. And you're looking at Connor Hellebuyck, and unbelievable season again last year. You're right. He is the backbone of that team. They've got a really solid team there. I watched them play last night. But it's more about them getting to the next level in the playoffs. They haven't been able to do it the last couple of years. He's the guy you focus on because you need him to drag you out of it.
He's the man.
And they haven't done that.
He is the man. Yep. All right, we'll come back with the number 1 player or coach on the list. All right, players and coaches that have pressure to help meet their team's expectations. Number 1 on that list, we'll get to it next. All right, so Hayesy's list is all about players and coaches on Canadian teams that have pressure to help meet their team's expectations this year. A rare week. Curveball being thrown, a 10-pack. Usually it's 5-pack. This week it's 10. To recap, at 10, Craig Berube, Marty St. Louis at 9, Thatcher Demko at 8, Travis Green at 7, Stuart Skinner at 6, Linus Ullmark at 5, Austin Matthews at 4, Elias Pettersson at 3, Connor Hellebuyck at 2. Number 1 on the list, Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid is at number 1. And why would I have him at number 1? The greatest player in the world, the guy who won the Conn Smythe and his team didn't even win. It's because of that clip we heard yesterday and today and the reality of where he is. And we talked a lot about this after they lost the Stanley Cup, where I came in and I was arguing it was a massive hit to his legacy because he's in such a small group now. There's like 5 or 6, maybe 8, maybe 10 players all time that are in his category, in his stratosphere. He's blown past everyone else. Like 99.9% of players that have ever played in the NHL are behind him on the list. And the guys that are with him or ahead of him are Gretzky, Lemieux, Orr, Howe, Crosby. They all have wins. They've all won. Ovechkin, maybe Messier. Like, there's a couple guys that are in that. I'll listen to arguments. Fine. Guy Lafleur, sure. They've all won Stanley Cups, and the majority of them have won multiple Stanley Cups. He's got to get one. He has to get one. And he's going into year 10. He's not a young player anymore. They have the highest expectations they've probably ever had. They had a lot of expectations last year. They have for years.
Yeah.
Draisaitl's locked in. Skinner showed up last year. Knobloch seems to have a really good feel for things. McDavid's got to get it done. He's got to win a Stanley Cup. He's got to be driving them there, and I fully expect that he will at some point. I could see it being this year. But until he gets that Stanley Cup, I would have him at the top of this list.
I'm actually surprised he made it to the top of this list, and you're putting him right under the gun again. He is the best player in the world, and he has to get that cup, Hayesy. I thought for sure that number one was going to be either Mitch Marner or Joseph Woll. I thought for sure.
No, I'm objective, man. This is a national
No. You looked at
list.
this subjectively.
I did, just like Mark Shapiro.
That's
and,
right.
Ross
That's right.
Atkins
All of
always
us
do.
look at this objectively as if it's a positive list. So therefore, it's a positive list.
Yeah, that's my stance on it. I mean, it's my list. You guys can fight back and push on it all you want. I don't.
It's a fair list. You
that.
can make an argument for all 10 of those people that you put on there. And you could actually expand it because you're right. Mitch Marner, Joseph Woll, there's other guys in markets that you're going, okay, like, when are they going to get theirs type of thing? So I think the list is formidable.
Yeah. And McDavid's up there for different reasons. There's a bunch of guys on that list who are on that list kind of like get your head out of your ass type reason.
Right.
Right.
McDavid's is not. McDavid's is to get to the final destination of his journey.
And that's the nature of this list, and that's what we've been explaining.
I'm telling you, this
times.
could have been a 20-pack for fun.
I could give you. Why don't we come back with some on the outside that you would put in, or you think have the best chance? Any of the omissions?
I'll start. I may have just mentioned a couple.
Okay, we'll get to that to start next hour. Pierre LeBrun coming up as well at our best bets around the corner. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.